Danny, what is there left for Kane? Did I hear you say as we went into the last bit? Nothing. Is there nothing left for him now at Tottenham? Do all roads lead out of there then?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing, and it's a glimmer of a hope, isn't it? It's jumping into that top 4 spot and getting Champions League. So he's still got Champions League football, but is that enough? I don't think so. He talked in 2017, didn't he, about...
Financially it will be. Financially it'll be another 50, 60 million
I'm
quid
on
to
about
Tottenham.
for Kane.
But Tottenham will then have money to spend to be able to convince Harry Kane that they're going to supplement, they're going to bring in a stellar manager to pick up the slack from where Mourinho left off. They're going to convince Harry... Because we've got 2 discussions about Harry Kane. What's available for Harry Kane at Tottenham Hotspur? And in a sport which we pretty much accepted at this moment in time is broken financially,
who's
going to pay the money that Tottenham will demand for Harry Kane to be able to facilitate a move? Because we all love flapping our gums about where Harry Kane's going to go and how much he's worth. If he's worth 100 million or 150 million or whatever we say he's worth, right? Who actually, in a sport that's lost 5 billion with owners that are going on television like Perez saying we've lost 5 billion in the last 2 years, who actually is going to write a cheque out for 150 million for Harry Kane?
Well,
where are his options?
Do you doubt anyone would?
I have significant reservations about
I think
their ability
150
to do.
would. I agree. I think it would have to be relative. He'd have to come down.
Well, Daniel doesn't give anybody anything for nothing. And we've sat here waxing lyrical about what a wonderful deal maker he is. He's an accountant. But let's just take a trip fantastic on the fact he's a fantastic deal maker. Right? He's not going to give Harry Kane away to somebody else without wringing out every last pip and piece of value from it, right? Which will take it beyond 100 million quid, probably. Right? Who is going to write that cheque? Man United didn't want to write £100 million cheques last year. Man City don't want to write £100 million cheques. According to us, Barcelona are bust. Madrid as well. Right? So where's he going to go? He's a hostage to fortune, perhaps.
But so is Daniel's a hostage to circumstance as well, isn't he? If the club's losing as much money as you say they are.
Where's the value? Is there more value in keeping Kane and building the team back up to where it was? Because don't forget, 2 or 3 years ago, we all sat down and said, Tottenham are the poster boys. They've got a wage bill which is 38% of turnover. They're in the top 4. They're in the Champions League final. And they've made 137 million quid profit. And they've built a new stadium.
Well, let me give you
These are the blueprint. All of a sudden, now they're not. They're a toxic brand of failures.
I hear you. Makes sense. But what I would say is this, and you'll know more than me of being an owner of a football club. I can only talk from a player's perspective. Depending on the mentality of the footballer, depending on his will to leave and his will to succeed.
That's the big part.
If Harry Kane, because he's done his bit at Spurs.
If he throws one in.
If he throws one in and says, look, there's a bid, and his agent would know if there's a bid on the table for 80 or 90, whatever it may be. Let's forget the amount.
Yeah, I need you to take it. I'm out of here.
Yeah. If he goes to Daniel hard enough and regular enough, you get your move somehow, by hook or by crook.
With Levy? Even with Levy?
And that's the why factor that you can't factor in, which is, will Harry Kane
how much
have the chutzpah, for want of a better expression, to say to Tottenham Hotspur in no uncertain terms and Daniel Levy uncertain terms, if I don't get going, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah. But I mean, he made Bale sweat, didn't he? He made Bale sweat right to the very end.
Well, he always
and Jonathan
makes
Barnett and the rest of them.
But he made Berbatov sweat.
Modric was the same.
Berbatov sweat, Modric sweat. They all had to sweat.
But at different times, because Madrid at that time were just leading with their checkbook. We are going to buy this player. It's just a matter of how much, right? And Daniel had an opportunity at a different time in the game where there was more money sloshing about. We're now sitting here in a financially stricken football game, where players' wages haven't adjusted, with clubs losing hundreds of millions of quid, and we're suggesting that the landscape remains the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah, but Simon, might that not make Daniel even more keen to get rid of Kane? At a reasonable price, at a decent price, somewhere near to what you think he might get.
Well, that's possibly the decision. But when you're sitting there and saying that are people, if Daniel was going to look at Harry Kane, I would think that Daniel would be looking towards 100 million quid. I don't think the market will lend itself to 100 million quid. No, I don't. I think the market will lend itself to 60 million quid with add-ons, which will be no interest.
I think there might be somewhere in between.
Maybe at 80 million quid, you might get a question put to Daniel Levy.
I think so.
You might get a question put to Daniel Levy at 80 million.
But without knowing the intricacies of the finances at Spurs, and you're there now sitting in Daniel's position, what would you, if Harry Kane knocked on the door and said, "Look, I want to go," what would get it over the line for you? 100.
I think probably, yeah. I mean, I think you've got to look at what that money can do for you because
you're also talking about his wages if he
it's
stays.
It's a double-edged sword, yeah. Of course you are, but Tottenham's wage control, I mean, is
top
far
one.
better
He's
than any
top.
other club in the Premier League, probably.
It is.
I mean, if you look at their wages to turnover in 2018-19, they had 38%. They had the lowest
Incredible.
wage turnover, incredible, and they were finishing 4th in the league and getting to Champions League finals.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say that wasn't the way to run a football club in some extent, but it needed further investment, it needed further development, and therein lies the challenge. That's why Kroenke sits there as a billionaire at Arsenal that likes mediocrity, because spending to get into the top 4 costs money, dropping out of the top 8 costs money, sitting in the top 8 is where Kroenke wants to be. Daniel's got a real twist or stick or twist moment.
I think the desire from the two Manchester clubs to get to the next again, especially if City don't win the Champions League, but I mean they could, especially Man United, the red half. I think 100 million for United and City is doable.
But the intrigue for all of us,
for the two Manchester clubs to do it.
Well, one of them.
That's
I think
100.
Haaland will go to one of them, and I think Kane will go to the other.
There you go. Kane United, Haaland City. Could look that way. Simon, is it your belief then that no matter what, Mourinho went last week at the time he went because of a money-related problem?
well, you have to distill Daniel Levy down into its finest format, right? What is Daniel? He's an accountant, right? He's not an entrepreneur. He's an accountant. He works for Joe Lewis, and I think probably would sell Tottenham if he got the right money for it, with a device in hand that the club's losing money, right? And the one thing that Daniel was motivated by is the club achieving money. When we had a challenge last year about Tottenham furloughing, what was that about? Money. Why did they go into the European Super League? Money. When were they at their most happiest? When they were making 130 million quid. Why did they build a new stadium? Money. Why did they get the NFL involved? Money. Why would you take Mourinho out on the eve of a final that you brought him in to achieve? I think all roads lead to Damascus.
But
they
even
lead
if
to an economic decision. And I think it's because Mourinho had something. They didn't want him anymore. They'd made their decision that it had gone that way. So all they were doing was treading water. So a League Cup final was sacrificed because your best chance to win that... I don't think they'd beaten Man City even with Mourinho there, but they had more of a chance with Mourinho than they ever had, with due respect to Ryan Mason and Chris Powell.
But let's say there was
and
a
they
clause.
sacrificed that cup final
Let's say there was
for an economic reason. Is my view.
I think you're
And that's
probably.
hypothesis.
I think you're probably right. But let's say there was a clause in Mourinho. A lot of managers have clauses in contract for winning trophies or keeping teams in the league, don't they? Top 10. I know
For
certain
being in the
managers
top
I've played
10,
under
yeah.
top 10 million quid, keeping them in the league, million quid, all that business. If there was a 10 million clause in Mourinho's contract, if I win a trophy for this club, you give me 10 million quid. Is that worth it? Is it? I mean, Daniel will probably say yes because they might have lost anyway. But do you say that is if there is a clause, and I think there probably is.
I think there probably is.
If he was going to win that trophy and then get £10 million, Tottenham Football Club, would you rather have the trophy and have a chat? I think I'd rather win it. Of course you would. But I understand the way the world is at the moment. Simon's making a great point.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a financial reason why Daniel's got rid of Mourinho. Because if it was a personal one and there'd been a major bust-up, we'd know by now, wouldn't we?